So we have some breaking news coming out here. The Las Vegas Raiders superstar left tackle Kolton Miller is likely out for the rest of the season. The injury is way worse than we initially had thought. Ian Rapport was the first to put this out. According to his sources, Raiders offensive tackle Kolton Miller received bad news on his ankle following further testing. It's a high ankle sprain and a hairline fracture rather than just a sprain. If you guys remember yesterday, Pete Carroll was asked about it, and he mentioned something about like the MRI stuff and I think he said we haven't gotten it necessarily, but Colt Miller went and did that MRI literally that same day, right? So Sunday he gets hurt, he gets that MRI done on Sunday. But as Ian Rappaport puts it out there, the MRI that he did reveal the sprain. So the Raiders already knew he had a high ankle sprain. However, he went and did a CT scan as well, and that is what revealed the actual fracture. So he doesn't have just a high ankle sprain, right? You look at a guy like Joe Alt, Tyler Booker, Cooper Beebe. These are guys that all have high ankle sprains right now. And those are just high ankle sprains. So most of these guys are going to be back within the next 3 to 6 weeks. Cole Miller has not only the high ankle sprain, but he has a hairline fracture on top of it. And that makes it way worse. You could have two types of hairline fractures. There's one which would be considered like low risk. And you can come back from that in about 6 weeks. But then there's the high ankle sprain type of hairline fracture. I don't know the technical term, but it makes it way worse when you have the high ankle sprain and the hairline fracture is associated with that. Essentially, Colt Miller's timetable right now, best case scenario is about 10 to 12 weeks. On average, it's about 12 to 14 weeks. So if you think about it, right, like let's just say best case scenario, it's 10 weeks. That's already taking you week 15. So if the Raiders feel like, hey, we're going to make the playoffs this season, it makes sense for Colt Miller to come back at that point. But if you're like 3-12 and you're going to like week 14 and Miller could potentially come back, there's no point of playing him. And again, in that instance, he's going to not play for the rest of the season, right? He'll just essentially be out. It's kind of like how the Raiders could have potentially brought back Christian Wilkins last season, but they ended up just keeping him out for the season because the Raiders weren't having success last year. So Colt Miller will now fall in that type of category. And again, most likely Colt Miller does not play for the Raiders the rest of the season. And, when you look at things like a hairline fracture, you think about the high ankle sprain. This isn't something that has come up in the past with Kolton. Kolton had the shoulder issue happen. I think it first popped up about 3 years ago. He did not get it corrected in that offseason, right? Going from 3 years ago to 2 years ago. Did not get it corrected. And he decided I'm going to just go into this season. And then 2 years ago, he really struggled. And he missed pretty much a third of the season as the season was kind of coming to an end, right? He missed the last 1/3 of the games. But then going in from that 2 seasons ago into last season, he got the surgery. And last season, he started off a little slow, but the guy had a really, really good finish to last season. This year, he was 100% healthy, no shoulder issue at all. The guy was good to go when he came in. And truth be told, Colt Miller was playing like a top 10 left tackle or top 10 overall offensive tackle. You could have made the argument he was playing as a top 5 tackle. Right, his technique looked a lot better. He looked super fluid. He looked like a guy that was like a dominant offensive tackle. And I think he's barely approaching 30, so he still has 5 or 6 good years left in his NFL career. And the high ankle sprain, you can't really control those things. You kind of get rolled up. That could happen to anyone. And it's really, really, really unfortunate because this is the guy that the Raiders were relying on this season. We had Thayer Munford as our swing tackle, but he really wasn't all that good. He struggled a lot. So the Raiders decided, hey, we're going to bring in Stone Forsythe. We brought him in and we kind of let Thayer Munford go, but even Forsythe's not really that good of a football player. I've watched a lot of his tape. He has good movement sometimes for being as big as he is, but he still loses. He doesn't have elite movement. Colt Miller and Forsythe, they're about the same size. Miller's movement is elite for that size. And Stone Forsythe's movement is not elite. So we're going to have struggling snaps, in my opinion. We're going to struggle on tape, right? I think we're going to see a team going up against the Colts, and the Colts are going to attack that left tackle position. And it's kind of crazy because we already had DJ Glaze, who in his own right isn't elite. And with DJ Glaze, we're already helping this guy. We're double teaming, we're chipping, we're making sure we're influencing guys so they can't speed rush to give him that help. And what's happening now is with DJ Glaze, we're not going to be able to provide that same type of help because now we have a third string left tackle or third string offensive tackle playing the left tackle spot. So it's going to make it that much worse for the Raiders. And Geno Smith has struggled a lot this season, right? The guy's panicking, bad ball placement. He's not playing the way he should be playing, right? The passes aren't coming out on time. And the Raiders season does not look good right now. again, we're going into a pivotal part of this season. We're 1-3. We need to win some of these games as we go forward. And I truly do think the Raiders could easily win, not easily, but like they could win the next 3 games. And no one would be surprised. If the Raiders beat the Colts, they beat the Titans, they beat the Chiefs. No one would actually be surprised if the Raiders won those games because we are a good enough team where we could win those games. We have a good enough, group of guys when it comes to the weapons. We have a quarterback that has had success in the past. And we have a offensive coordinator who just won a national championship, right? And I know it was college, but Chip Kelly's proven himself a little bit as an offensive play caller. So the Raiders could have success still, and they're going into this pivotal part, and of course that'll be without left tackle Kolton Miller. And I don't want to overlook how big of a loss this is for the Raiders. Kolton Miller, what he's done for the Raiders this season has been impressive. He's come in and he's pretty much dominated every single matchup he's had. He hasn't had many losing snaps. He doesn't lose all that much, just generally speaking. He's definitely been our best offensive lineman. And he wasn't this good last year. I'm telling you guys this right now. Kolton Miller took a massive step this season. He just looked so much better. Took a massive step. You can tell he really put work into this offseason. And it was paying off in these first 4 games. Like, he was elite out there. He was opening up massive lanes for the run game. And I know our run game struggled a little bit, but any plays where we did have success came right behind Kolton Miller. Ashton Jeanty's 64-yard run came behind Kolton. Raheem Mostert's 37-yard run also came right behind Kolton. This guy was making contact and moving people out of those gaps. This is going to be a huge loss for the Raiders. And, I think it's a bigger loss when you go from Kolton Miller to Stone Forsythe, because of the fact that I don't think Stone Forsythe has he doesn't have that run blocking that Kolton Miller had, right? He's not going to be the type of guy that's going to move people at the point of attack. That's not his game. I think Forsythe, and I watched his tape just a little bit before I got into this video because I wanted to give you guys some of what he's good at and why I think Charles Grant would actually have made more sense. And again, Pete Carroll did confirm that it would be Forsythe that's going to get that first opportunity, but this could also give Charles Grant a potential into winning this job, or at least being able to kind of take over and have some playing time. But when I watch this guy's tape, he just struggles moving people, right? He'll make contact with people on the inside-outside zone. And because he's so tall, he doesn't play with great leverage, so he kind of gets stood up a lot. So what happens is if you run zone to his side, and let's say he has a guy to his side that he needs to move, he's not going to move those guys. So think about Ashton Jeanty's 64-yard touchdown run. Kolton Miller moved his guy out of that gap, right? He turned him and he created that lane. Stone Forsythe's not going to do that. He's going to make contact with this guy. There's going to be no movement. So it's going to just make it that much more difficult to run the football. And because of that, is exactly why I would actually go forward with Charles Grant. I think Charles Grant has that ability where he can move people at the point of attack. And you know what sucks? And obviously, you can't predict injuries like this, but I was saying this like 2 weeks ago, but the Raiders should have put Charles Grant in my opinion. He should have been playing left guard. He should have been taking snaps to get him ready. And again, I know you can't predict injuries, but we always knew that DJ Glaze wasn't that good. And because the interior guys are struggling already, to me, it just made sense to let Grant play. And it doesn't matter that he's inexperienced. The potential that Grant has is way higher than the potential that Kappa has, that even Dylan Parham has at this point. I know Parham had a couple of nice blocks, but chances are, the same guy we saw weeks 1, 2, and 3 with Parham, we're going to see that guy in this next game. Chances are Jeffrey Simmons or, whichever guy, the DeForest Buckner for the Colts, right? Over the next couple of weeks, Chris Jones coming in 3 games from now. Chances are those guys are going to beat up on Dylan Parham and some of the guys on the inside. We should have gotten Charles Cross more ready, in my opinion, right? Or sorry, Charles Grant. I don't know. I was confused the 2 guys. Charles Cross is the left tackle on the Seahawks. Charles Grant's our guy who hopefully becomes as good as Charles Cross one day. But again, I think for the Raiders, you want to have short-term success. Well, I understand if you go Stone Forsythe, but just don't make those decisions where I feel like the last 2 games before the most recent game, but the 2 games before that, the Raiders are struggling on the offensive line. And for 2 straight games, Pete Carroll was unwilling to make changes. I hope we don't get into a situation where our left tackle sucks for 3 weeks and we wait 3 weeks to finally make that change. I hope that's not the situation we're in. I hope they keep it fluid. If Forsythe struggles for 2 quarters, make the switch right then and there and see what the rookie can do for the next two. Plus, I honestly think, long term, if you put Charles Grant out there and you let this guy play, you let this guy develop, he may struggle for 2 games, but by week 3 or 4, he's going to look so much better and he's just going to continue to get more comfortable. And over time, and don't get it wrong, he might still give up 8-9 sacks this season. But over time, he's only going to get better, and there's a real chance by the time the season comes to an end or as we go into next season, this guy could be a franchise type of offensive tackle. What Charles Grant has, right, from a body structure standpoint, you look at a guy like Olu Fashanu as an example of this. Bernard Ryman's another example of this. These guys are like long. They're on the skinnier side, but they're generally strong. Ryman's not as strong as like Olu Fashanu, but Grant kind of fits that Olu Fashanu movement, right? Kolton Miller kind of has that movement. Ryman has that movement, left tackle of the Colts. These guys are super, super fast. Tyler Guyton has that movement as well. And they're big offense tackles, right? And they're fairly strong as well. But obviously, they'll continue to add to their body frame to really, become an NFL caliber offense tackle. I'm telling you guys, the Raiders should roll forward Charles Grant, but I don't think that's going to end up happening. Either way, this is really, 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 really unfortunate news for the Raiders as we kind of go forward. I do hope, and this has happened, we've seen Adam Schefter come out and say, hey, player X has torn his ACL. And then 5 hours later, they come out and say, hey, it actually isn't as bad as what they initially thought. I hope that happens right here, but something tells me it's not going to end up happening because Ian Rappaport was the same one that on Sunday, right after the game, he was the one that also reported that, hey, Kolton Miller has, he has a high ankle sprain, right? That's what the initial MRI has confirmed, which on Sunday, that is what the MRI confirmed, right? The CT scan, probably yesterday is what revealed the actual fracture, right? So, hopefully Ian Rappaport can come out and say, hey, it's only going to be an 8-week process, at the best case scenario. But he's likely out. We'll see what the Raiders kind of do as we go forward. Just wanted to bring this news to you guys really quickly. Also, I did do a film breakdown. If you guys did not see that this morning, make sure you guys go check that out. Some people disagreed with my Dante Thornton comments, right? Because I was a little maybe too critical of him. But, it is what it is. I think, the Raiders have to, if you're going to go forward with a guy like Thornton, who's raw, and say, hey, we're going to let this guy learn, well, let's do the same thing with Charles Grant at this point as well, right? Let's just put the guy in. But, I think we'll be fine, man. I think Thornton will be fine as we kind of go forward. Gino just has to clean some things up. Let me know what you guys think. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.